My name is Liz Maybury, and I am excited to be here today to talk to you about collaborative ideation. We'll just do a little introduction to that. Here's a quick agenda of what we're going to cover. It's going to take about 15-20 minutes. I'll go a little bit over my background, why I'm even so excited about this. Then, of course, how to run an actual ideation session. What are the next steps once you have run an ideation session? What are you going to do with all that stuff? And then finally, I included a couple of resources that might be helpful for you wanting to run your own. A little bit about me. I'm currently a lead product designer at Vimeo. I work on our collaboration team where we're responsible for everything to do with sharing, engagement, and interacting with a video's viewer. I also actively mentor at ADP List. It's a free mentoring platform. Feel free to find me on there. Like George mentioned, my background's graphic design. That's what I originally studied at Dublin Institute of Technology, which is now called Technological University of Dublin. And I worked for several years as a graphic designer. Some of that time with George, I worked agency side and as a freelancer. And I was really into, I guess sometime into that, just very into the digital side, interested in digital design. I'd been teaching myself to code and I really wanted to learn more about that. So I went back to TU Dublin and I completed a master's in creative digital media. And that's the first time I actually heard about user experience. I had a module that was based on that. And I was like, wow, like this is what I want to do. This is super exciting. It's everything I'm into in one discipline. So that was really cool for me, and it was when I got the opportunity to first start creating my first apps. So yeah, knew I'd found what I wanted to stay in. Once I graduated in 2014, I moved to New York, and I've been working here ever since in the tech industry. I've worked in startups as small as 5 people up to where I am at now at Vimeo. We've over 1,000 employees. A lot of my experience has been in the video space, but generally in SaaS software. So yeah, why? I guess why am I so excited about collaborative design? Why did I want to come here and talk to you about this today? The first time I ever encountered it was specifically through ideation sessions, which is really what we're going to focus in on today. That was in my first job, and I was very junior, and I was looking up different ways of different methods I could use to enhance my practice. And one of these I found was ideation sessions, which is where you work with your team to generate different ideas for solving a problem. So I convinced my team to let me do that, which was always the first step. And they let me run it. It went okay. It was my first one, but it was really fun. And I started to see some of the value in that. Fast forward, a year or so, I'm in my next job, and within a few months, I get moved onto our growth team. Growth teams are typically responsible for business growth. They typically work iteratively, really rapidly. They're data-driven and they want to prove hypotheses. So within that team, I needed to work really quickly. We were trying to turn around a design within, we turn around an entire release within 2 weeks. So I typically had about a week to do a design, and I was the only designer. So I was like, I need some help with this. So I brought back the ideation sessions. That was with my immediate team. So our engineers, our product manager, also the head of growth, and then I would bring in people as I needed, depending on their expertise, maybe someone from marketing, someone from another team that had in-depth info about whatever problem we were trying to solve. And it was through the course of running these really regularly that I started to build up my confidence in doing them. Once you do one once a week, it becomes pretty routine. And I started to truly see the value of collaborative ideation. First, obviously, it solved my problem of, we need to do this quickly. I was able to get very quickly, within an hour, suddenly you have 30, 40 ideas on how to solve a problem. But not just that, I noticed that the quality of our solutions was better when you're getting perspectives from an entire team with different backgrounds. You just have a greater breadth of solutions to choose from. And what I really also saw from that is it's not just design that can have those amazing ideas. And I think that's a really important mindset to go into any kind of collaborative design or ideation session with. It's that anyone can have that amazing idea. Yes, like as designers, we're responsible for ensuring it's executed. You know, we're choosing the amazing idea that's going to solve our problem. It's going to have a fantastic experience for our users. But ultimately, anyone can, that idea can come from anywhere. And it's more than likely, when generated as a group, going to be a better idea. And this setting this mind frame is also helpful going into those sessions when people from outside the discipline, the design discipline, are trying to take part in these. It can be a little nerve-wracking. You know, people can be nervous to share creatively when they feel like they're surrounded with people whose entire job is to be creative. So it can be really good to set that that perspective and that guidance for the whole team. So as you may have mentioned, I am honing in a little bit on ideation sessions. Of course, collaborative design can take part at any point in the design process. This probably is a familiar chart. If we just quickly recap the process, we want to empathize with our users. We want to define the problems that we're trying to solve for them. Ideation or brainstorming, you know, generating ideas that are going to solve this problem. Prototyping, building, and then of course testing, and then iterating through many of these cycles. Collaborative design, there are different methods and exercises we can use at many points during this process. But what I want to hone in today, as you gathered, is the ideation stage. Having the whole team go through these methods for every single stage is, frankly, it can be time consuming. Not every team, not every company is going to that's not going to be feasible every single time. So if there's one particular stage in the process where I find you get the most value for your time, it's for me definitely the ideation stage. I will touch on some other methods, but that's what we're going to go into in more detail. So once you've decided I would like to run an ideation session, it's helpful to have some backup in terms of getting everyone else on board with that session. You may need to convince a product manager, the engineers, maybe your own manager, a CEO. You need to give some benefits as to why, you know, if I work with the team for 1 to 2 hours, if I'm pulling people out of other teams, what benefits will I get from this time? And these are some benefits I've noticed over my years of running them. I'm sure there's many more, but in my experience, the first one I really like is that it builds alignment and a sense of ownership. So when the whole team is involved with creating a solution, there's no surprises when it comes to build or sign off. This is because everyone can, I mean, I'll rewind a little. There's always some kind of surprise, I think, at build or sign off, but this definitely greatly reduces that risk. Because everyone has contributed, they can feel a sense of ownership over this final solution, rather than just being handed something when it's their stage in the process, whether that's to build, to market, whatever it is that needs to be done next. The second point, which I've touched on a little already, is you get better solutions. Your sum output becomes greater than your input when you combine multiple ideas from different perspectives, and then different viewpoints. You have discussion and ideation. It becomes, as a group, you get much more than you could attain as individuals. Number 3 is innovation. It's of course rare that we can build the best case scenario, ideal state right away, but designing without limits, focusing on that vision, thinking about your ideas without constraints helps to give us a shared sense of where we're going, and it helps us to break down the steps that are going to get us there. So yes, we have this amazing idea for how to solve this problem. It could be very future facing. It may not be attainable in this project. It could be 12 months out, 2 years out, but that gives us a basis to start to phase that and have a shared direction that we're working towards, that we can build the steps to it, versus if we approach this from a what can we do within our current constraints, we block ourselves from thinking of that vision, and we back ourselves into a corner that may not actually be the best solution for our users. So that's something I always emphasize in ideation sessions. No constraints, think about the future, and that's where we can innovate. It also really reduces blind spots and helps us to discover new opportunities. If you think about members of your team, coworkers, people you're working with, everyone has different skill sets, different work experiences, different lived experiences, different areas of expertise. And by bringing all those perspectives into the room, we make it less likely that we'll miss something, and we give ourselves the opportunity to find new areas to solve for our users. Number 5, I already mentioned this again, but it's fast. Yes, you do need to do some upfront prep. Once you've done a couple of these, that upfront prep becomes much shorter. And ultimately, you save yourself some hours in the long run by generating ideas and making that process really fast. And number 6, which I really love, I find that it really contributes to a user-focused culture in the team. So if you're running these, reasonably regularly, it's not appropriate for every project, but if you choose to run these semi-regularly, you're going to see that as everyone on the team learns more and more about the user, gets used to taking in those insights, you're building a team of people who are all focused on specific user problems. They know your users' needs, and you have a whole team looking out for ways to solve that at different stages in the process. And it's not just you. And ultimately, that's going to lead to a better experience for our user. That's always our goal. So you've convinced your team that we're going to run this, and next you need to get into setting this up. The first thing you need to determine is this going to be remote or in person? Both of these work fine. These methods are going to work the same no matter what. You're just going to have to make some adjustments in how you prepare for it. So if you're going to do this in person, of course, you're going to need a room. So you may need to schedule that. You need to gather your sketching materials. So paper, pen, highlighters, maybe some stickers for voting. Pro tip is always include snacks. People love that. And then, of course, if you're doing this remotely, which I think many of us are now, you can use digital whiteboarding tools like Miro or FigJam. I've used Miro in the past. Right now at Vimeo, we use Figma and FigJam frequently, so I do all my ideation in FigJam. And your participants are going to need to have their own supplies to hand if they're remote. So for some people, that will be a pen and paper. Always good to call that out. People don't always have paper to hand now, and they may also want to use an iPad for sketching. So just whatever people are using, you're going to need to give them a heads up on that. So once you've figured that out, you need to determine who would you actually like to invite to this ideation session. I have some guidance that I typically use when I'm determining who would be best for any given session. Obviously, you do want to include the people who will be directly involved in the creation of the end product. So that's almost certainly your immediate team. For me, that's my product manager. It could be engineers. It could be product marketing. If you're on a team with other product designers, you'll want to include them. And then you want to start thinking about people with specific domain expertise or knowledge that's relevant to the problem that you're trying to solve. So that could be user researchers, maybe people from marketing, people from other teams that just happen to know a lot about what you're trying to work on. For example, when I ran before, it was for a template, choosing templates to create videos in a previous job. And it was really important to get someone from marketing in there because that was a really key first step in our creation and registration flows. So you're going to be able to determine, dependent on your project, who's the right person or who are the right people to bring into this. And then, of course, you want your stakeholders. So these could be people who maybe are not involved day to day in the execution of this, but they're going to be signing off on it. They're going to have a perspective on it. They're going to have information that's going to be really useful to you. And you want to get those viewpoints and that knowledge. In every case, you want to get that earlier in the process rather than getting that at the end of the process when you're trying to get a sign off or get something through build. And then in terms of numbers, I would recommend about 4 to 8 people per session. I have run sessions with more, maybe 10 people. That does start to get a bit long. It's difficult for people to focus for that long. So anything above 8, I would, if time permits, I would suggest splitting those into different cohorts and running the session a couple of times. So once you've determined who you're inviting, you're going to want to start preparing for the session itself. First thing, always schedule the session. I cannot tell you how difficult it is to schedule time with many people across different teams. You want to give yourself a good head start on this. So as soon as you know, I would get that on a calendar. And then you want to start pulling together material that's going to help your team members, your participants understand the problem that you're trying to solve, the challenges that this user is facing. So think about all of the research that you have available. That could be insights, how might we statements, customer quotes, customer interviews, personas. You might want to bring in competitive audits that give people inspiration, anything that you have that's going to help build a good picture for them of the problem they're trying to solve. I like to put all of this into a Fig Jam because I'm going to set up my ideation session in there so I can have my research in one section, my ideation right there, and people can refer to it if they need to during the session. But of course, that it can vary. You may want to put that in slides. It really depends on the type of content that you have. Then in advance, maybe even a couple of days in advance, you want to send your participants an overview of the session. So what are they going to be doing? Give them a detailed agenda. We'll go through that next. Of course, they are going to need the problem that they're solving, and then give them a link to all of that research pack that you've put together. And it's really important that you request they read that in advance. People need time to let that sit. In their subconscious and let the ideas percolate a little bit. That's definitely feedback I've heard over the years as well, that people really appreciate that as well. They take ideation seriously. They take this opportunity to, give their input on it seriously, and they want to be able to do the best they can. So do make sure you give them at least a few days to do that. And then, of course, specify any materials they're going to need. So drawing tools, maybe a phone with a scanning app if they need to get paper onto FigJam, snacks, water if they're at home. They're going to be sitting there for an hour or two, so you want to make sure they've everything they're going to need with them. And then it's also important to ensure your team are going to have any accounts created that they may need to access tools that you're using, and they're going to need edit access to your chosen whiteboarding tool. It's good to make sure that's all working in advance because time is going to be precious. You'll see this when if you're running them, time goes very quickly, and you don't want to lose 5-10 minutes at the start trying to get your team onto the boards that they need. So now I will take you through a sample structure. This is definitely not set in stone. You'll be able to find lots of examples of things like this online. So I would say start with something similar to this and then tailor it to your own needs. You're going to find sometimes you have more time available to work with your team, so maybe you can extend it a little bit. Other times you're going to be really short on time, and you may end up needing to do some parts of this async. As you get familiar with it, you'll start to see how that can work best. But first, you want to start your session with an intro. This one will run about, I think it's about an hour and a half, but So start with an intro, let people know what they're going to do, cover your agenda, have the team introduce themselves if they have not met already. And then you want to get into like a TLDR. Here's the high level problem space that we're solving. Here's the key insights that we have that are going to help you solve this problem. The reason we want to do this is, one, you want this fresh in everyone's memory, even if they read it. Two, I can guarantee you at least one person in that session has not read it. People are busy. This just always happens. So it's a good idea to just go through those highlights, those things you really think people need to know. I like to ask the group, start a conversation, like, what was most surprising to you from the research? What was most exciting that can help to help generate discussion and help some of those thoughts stick for the team. Then you want to get into the most exciting part, which is Crazy Eights. Crazy Eights are a pretty common tool that you might have heard of. So typically you fold, I don't know how well you can see me, but you can fold your piece of paper into sections, and that will give you a little grid. Do it maybe more neatly than I am currently doing it, but you'll see you'll get a little grid of 4, or you could do 6, 6 spaces for ideas that people, so everyone will do their own and sketch their ideas. Typically the balance of number of ideas to time, you want to make sure that the number of ideas is kind of a stretch goal. So coming up with 8 ideas in 10 minutes will sound a little daunting to people, but you want to keep this fast. You don't want people finessing the UI. They don't need to do that. Just get the ideas out. That's the purpose of the session. Then give a couple minutes just to upload those sketches to FigJam or put them on a wall if you're in person. And then you want everyone in the group to present their ideas to the rest of the team. Highly recommend using a timer here. You want to give it 1 or 2 minutes. That's going to help keep everything moving and give people a fair amount of time to talk. Then take a couple minutes and have everyone vote for their preferred solutions. It's important that they're voting for ideas that they think are going to solve the problem. You're going to see cool ideas, and you're going to see, what you do need to do is focus on solving the problem. So that should be what's in mind during the voting stage. And then you go around the room again and give everyone an opportunity to outline why they voted for their choices. And that's typically about a minute each. If you want to at this point, if you have some time, you could run another round of the sketching. People will have more ideas or improvements to ideas that have been inspired by what they've just heard and seen from their teammates. So that could be an option to do there. But if not, you can start moving into the final stage of grouping those sketches thematically. You're going to see themes emerge in terms of across the team, but also in the voting. So you can pull those together and as a team discuss and identify which ones you feel are strongest to move forward with. And then you can finish up with a recap and some next steps for the team. I did want to show, before we get into what actual next steps would be, just some examples of what those sketches could look like if you haven't tried this before. These are some of mine. You can see quality is low. So it's all about getting that idea. You're just trying to communicate idea and get that across. So here's some other examples. It can be just a section of the UI. It can be the entire a flow. It can be a page, but whatever is appropriate. I also wanted to share an example from a workshop that I did at Vimeo last year. This one was really fun to run. We ran it across, I collaborated with my PM. We ran it across about 6 different teams. We were, at the time, my team, we were responsible for a pretty highly trafficked page on the site with a lot of teams working on it. Their users, our users, but each focus area, their users were coming through from different parts of the product, and we really needed to understand that better so we could set a vision for the area. So we ran this across multiple different teams. This was actually a kind of mind-blowing experience for me, because I really saw the difference between what our team thought was the best versus what other teams thought versus what, an actual vision that encompassed all of those needs would actually look like. It's very different from the individual perspective. But just to show you how that turned out, this was our sketching session. So the team were, you can see added all their ideas here. These are notes that we add during the discussion to track important stuff, and these are votes. I also mentioned that there's different methods you can use for for collaborative design, not just ideation, of course. So this is an example of where I combined some of that. I wanted to learn more about our user journeys through this page. So we had everyone on each team do a collaborative journey mapping exercise where they mapped our current journeys. They did some team journeys as well. And I worked with my PM. We were able to pull these together into a more consolidated journey map vision that we could use to inform a lot of our work in this area. Yes, so what next? What do you do with all this stuff that you just got out of the session? I would say always send a follow-up email with next steps to your participants, let them know what's going on, and then start to use those ideas to inform your design process, start to refine some of those concepts. You may even have some new ideas coming out of it. But you are the designer, you own the user experience, so do remember to focus on what is best for the user. You know, just because something had the most votes, you do need to establish, like, is this actually successfully going to solve our problem? Is this just a starting point? So you'll be able to determine that, and you can, because you ultimately own that experience and those decisions. But I would recommend keeping your team in the loop as you go. So share your concepts, share your prototypes. You know, they've given a lot of time and thought to this. They're going to be really invested to see what you do next with it. And then finally, I just put together a few helpful tips. I wanted to put them all in one slide. I did mention a lot of them along the way, but always encourage your team to envision the ideal state without constraints. That's going to help you get towards the best and most ideal vision for your user. Always use a timer with an alarm. I'm sure you've been in lots of sessions where, or discussions, you know, one or two people maybe are more chatty, more outgoing. If you use an alarm, that's going to help you to give everyone an equal opportunity to speak. Always remind your team it's about their ideas, not their drawing skills. No idea is a bad idea. What you think is a bad idea could inspire someone else, or they may have an idea to make it actually work. So always share everything you come up with. People are going to be nervous, so offer to go first if you're participating in the sketching, and always show some examples if you can. Like I mentioned, important to share the research in advance and recap it at the start. And then do take notes or record the session. That's going to be really helpful when you're using those sketches and you want to go back through and see, you know, what was the discussion? Why did we vote for those? So highly recommend taking notes. And that is it. I put some resources here. Obviously, if you Google ideation sessions, collaborative design, there's going to be tons of stuff, but for me, these are the ones that frequently come up. If you want, you can screenshot that, but I would suggest searching for that. And then, of course, feel free to stay in touch with me. You can find me on LinkedIn or on ADP List. If you want to set up some time, I would be happy to do that. And thank you so much for listening. Thanks again, George, and I will be happy to answer any questions.